Boko Haram might not be sponsored by local entities as we previously thought, as reports that Turkey is supplying sophisticated weapons to the terrorist group have emerged, and now has caught the attention of the Defense Headquarters, who has described it as a serious issue. Well, joining me to discuss this, I have Peter Eigbedion. He's a security expert. It's good to have you join us, Peter.
Thank you, Maria.
And of course, we still have Ugochukwu Ikeko. He's a political analyst. Thank you, Ugo, for staying with us.
Thank you for
I'm going to start with you, Peter, because this is your forte. I remember in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of 2017, yes, if not at the end of 2016, we had the first tranche of ammunition that was intercepted by South African government. And where did the guns emanate from? Turkey. It was in the news. We made so much noise about it. I'm sorry, I'd never heard anything about that story again until another tranche of cash came in. It got into the country and was intercepted by soldiers mid-town.
Yes.
And nobody has talked about it. And here we are again. Turkey is in the news, and Nigeria is still somehow stringed to it. Does this raise any questions in your mind? Well,
from a security professional's perspective, there's no cause for concern, in the sense that, I'll say this from this perspective. Even when they mop up guns and ammunition, typically, the sanctions that are meted are usually meted out quietly, because the nature of intelligence that usually results in such a success requires that the aftermath of it is not widely broadcast. So once the issue has been dealt with,
why isn't it broadcast?
It's the nature of security. Sometimes you don't put out your successes out there because you have sources, you have assets, you have men on ground, you have places from which you're gathering information, and the more you trumpet a particular situation, the more you can expose some of your assets to harm. So with the Turkey issue now, I just want to say that for me, while I don't dismiss it, I don't also accept it, because first of all, knowing what we know now, this could also be a bit of fake news. I want to give backdrop to this.
It was carried by CBN News channel recently about China, about Turkey being a major supplier. And CBN is not necessarily a fake channel, a fake news channel. They're not known to carry fake news.
Yes. So now with the nature of what we do, even information warfare, psychological operations, propaganda, it's very possible that innocuously, I mean, you see, to establish credibility, a bit of information that is false can be placed in a credible source. And that's what we've seen it before in typical Nigerian newspapers. They've carried stories that had no truth, but they just ran with the headlines they found online, clickbait, and then later they had to retract the story. So I believe the same thing has happened here. Why am I saying this? There have been times past before where this particular information that we're hearing now that is just making the rounds, it purportedly, I think it first came out in 2014, 2015. So intelligence community and security community, we were aware that there was supposedly a leak somewhere that somebody had said on tape or video that the current president of Turkey, who was prime minister then, had been involved in smuggling ammunition to Nigeria, and they weren't sure if it was Christians or Muslims that the ammunition was going to kill. Now, there's something called this phenomenon called deep fakes on the dark web of the internet. People can take your voice and make it sound like something else you have never said. So it's very possible.
So what you're telling me is that this is fake news?
It's possible that it is. And even if it is not, it is too early for us to jump to conclusion. It's possible that this could just be a ploy to distract us from what the real issues are. Because it's impossible for you to tell me that Turkey is the sole sponsor or sole supplier of equipment to Boko Haram. Why am I saying this? In 2020, let me go back to when President Jonathan was president of Nigeria, and Gaddafi was still alive. One of the things that happened was that a lot of information we're hearing, rumor mill was having it that guns were being smuggled from Libya down to Nigeria. If you remember, Gaddafi and Nigeria had a diplomatic row. He had said Nigeria should be balkanized, should be divided into or by religious lines. And in response, the Nigerian government withdrew our ambassador to Libya, where there was a strain in relations, basically. At that time, anything that happened afterwards with Boko Haram, a lot of people attributed those incidents to Gaddafi trying to mess Nigeria up. In fact, the UN bombing in August 2011, the UN office in Abuja. The first 2 hours of that incident happening, people were saying, it's Gaddafi's men, it's Gaddafi's men. And if we had reacted based on that information, which we found out to not be true, Nigeria could have, evidently we had wise people in government. The NSA was a smarter man. They didn't react based on that. Now, typically, even if it is true that Turkey is responsible for some ammunition going out, look at Nigeria as well. There are incidents where we have heard that some of the crude oil that is stolen from our creeks was smuggled to guerrilla fighters from China, from Hong Kong, from different places to go and foment trouble. Now, if those countries were to hear this information, they could also say too that Nigeria, being a sponsor or being a hotbed of terrorism, is also sending or fueling conflict in their region.
As a security expert now, because you're being very diplomatic about it, which is interesting, if there be any iota of truth in this, what should our homeland be doing? What should intelligence in general be doing to check the veracity of these claims? Because they might not be true, but there might be some iota of truth to it.
Evident. Like I said, this information is not new. It's not new information. This supposed information that we are hearing now has been around for at least 3 years, to my knowledge, the best of my knowledge. Now we have the NIA, the Nigerian Intelligence Agency, National Intelligence Agency. I meant to say we have intelligence assets and even partner nations who are willing to help us with fighting this Boko Haram thing. So if it is indeed true, we can be sure that they are doing their best to scrutinize how best to block the inflow of weapons in. I'm not saying they will be 100% successful, but to the extent that this claim is also causing political stir in the polity, is also, if you look at it, Turkey is having other crises now, political crisis. Erdogan is having issues with Israel. He's been accused of having a hand in Syria and other conflicts elsewhere. That's why I'm very careful what we pick off of one social media report. If you go and check, you can the particular clip where that thing has said, it could have been doctored. So for me, what I'm concerned about is our agencies doing what they can do. Who are we working with to ensure that this does not happen? Why am I saying this? In 2000 and 2003, before the USA invaded Iraq, the last Iraqi invasion, there was actionable intelligence, to the best of our knowledge, from the CIA, from the US government, from the UK. You had UK Prime Minister Tony Blair coming out to say that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. You had Colin Powell saying the same thing. And at the end of the day, the US and partners who were willing to go into that action with them, they went unilaterally without a UN resolution, and they went into Iraq or toppled the government, and they didn't find any weapons. But to the best of our knowledge, from what they were saying there was actionable intelligence. So even when we see intelligence that looks actionable, one of the things that we do is we process it. We run it through different grills to say, okay, how best are we going to make sure that this information, who benefits from us reacting in a certain way? There's something called geostrategy. You have to determine, if we're acting in a certain way, in whose advantage is it? Even if this is true, if we play like this, in the balance of world power, if we play a certain way, does this affect us? Will oil prices go up? So I think they're handling from that perspective. I'm not worried about this.